Do you experience great joy in your life and what you do? Are you doing the things that you enjoy? Are you doing the things that you love to do? And sometimes people will say, well, I have all these responsibilities, kids, jobs, spouse, all that stuff, right? And the counsel will say, your most important responsibility is how you're feeling right now.
I've been able to partner with Mind Valley to present you guys free master classes between 60 and 90 minutes covering mind, body, soul, relationships, and conscious entrepreneurship, taught by spiritual masters, yogis, spiritual thought leaders, and best-selling authors. Just head over to nextlevelsoul.com/free. I'd like to welcome to the show, Sara Landon. How you doing, Sara?
Hi, Alex. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk to you and maybe the counsel, if possible. We'll see what happens in our conversation. I'm just really fascinated with the work you're doing, but specifically, the channeling. I mean, I've had other channels on the show before, but I always love talking about how it came to them, how they dealt with it, what it feels like, that whole process. But my first question is, what was your life like before your spiritual awakening?
Good question. I was living what probably seemed to most like a very normal life. I was married. I was in the corporate world. I had gotten really into personal development and sort of the science and the art of achievement and success, and that you can create anything you want in your life. And so I had gotten into the technology world around the .com era and was part of an incredible organization that did technology consulting. I was up at 5 a.m., went to the gym, sat in traffic for a couple hours, sat in my office all day, traveled a lot, got home late at night, got back on my email. And from the outside, I think I was living a pretty, normal, successful life by most people's standards. But inside, I knew I wasn't really living my truth. I knew I wasn't really living my purpose, but I had absolutely no idea what that was. Mm-hmm. And if anyone would have told me I would be channeling, I would have assured them they absolutely had the wrong person. But you never know where this path will lead for you. And when I started channeling the counsel, one of the first things they said was, if you will just live this wisdom, you will live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I quickly responded with, well, I have some very big dreams. I don't know how you could ever deliver a life beyond my wildest dreams. But I'll tell you, fast forward many years later, oh my gosh, I truly live a life beyond my wildest dreams, and the opportunities and the connections and the people and the love and the community and the co-creation, like what we're doing here today, is just beyond what I could have ever dreamt for my life. And I also would add to that, I went through my own spiritual awakening, sort of dark night of the soul. Everything I thought I was fell away. I went through a divorce. I left my corporate career. I had a year and a half of going through an experience with cancer. My brother died. My cousin died. It just sort of all was part of my experience. It felt like my whole life was falling apart. And now I know, of course, that it was really falling into place. And the part of me that wasn't really who I am was calling out to really live my purpose. And we oftentimes think that in these things that happen, that we've made some sort of mistake, but I see now the divine orchestration, the perfection, how it was all happening for me. And I have some very dear people in my life that are going through now what I was going through at that time. And I think one of the most rewarding things beyond living an amazing life is just being able to hold the light and hold the space and love them. And to me, I think if we can make other people's experience a little more gentle and loving and peaceful, and knowing that they're not alone, and knowing that there's so many other people that have been through this. Now, I truly do not believe that you have to hit rock bottom or your whole life has to fall apart for you to have a spiritual awakening or come to the truth of who you are. I don't in any way. And in fact, I truly do believe, because of the work you're doing and others like you and what we're doing, that the awakening experience can be a peaceful, harmonious, loving process for all who are ready. So thank you for what you do. And I have read your story and know your story, and I know you have experienced something very similar. So
Oh yeah, I've had to go through the dark. I went through, and my whole first book was about my dark time, and having to go through all of that. And it's interesting though that uh, all the great spiritual masters that have walked the earth at one point or another, they all almost always, if the entire story is told of the spiritual master, which sometimes it's not, uh, they go through a dark time. They go through the valley of the shadow of death, if you will. If I may quote Mr. Tarantino. And in those times, and that's different for everybody. It could be the loss of a family member. That's enough, or a breakup. That's enough. Or you're literally homeless and you don't know where your next meal is coming from. That's another level. It's different levels for everybody, but everybody has a version of it. And I think going through that, which brings me to a really interesting question for you. So many people look at bad things that happen, quote unquote, bad things that happen to us in our lives as negatives. And look, nobody wants to get into a car accident. Nobody wants to lose a loved one. But is there a way to look at those things as blessings? Because as I, and I think as you as well, look at our kind of walk in the shadows, if you know, that kind of dark time in our lives, I wouldn't change it. I really wouldn't, because I wouldn't be who I am without it. Yes, it was painful going through it. Yes, I didn't want to go through 3 years of depression after my whole story and the trauma that I carried with me for almost 20 years and all of that stuff, but I wouldn't change any of it. What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. The things that at the time I thought were the worst things that had ever happened, I now know from where I am in this place, as I look back at them, that they were the greatest gifts and blessings of my life. Now, that being said, I have tremendous compassion for anyone who is in the middle of this right now. And you can't always get to this is a blessing. But if you can get to the place where you really go into your heart and just ask the question, is it possible that in some way, even if I don't understand right now, that this is actually happening for me? Is it possible that this could be happening for me in some way? And if you can just ask yourself that question, you open up and you begin to tune your awareness to maybe a grander perspective or a grander vision for your life than what you have ever maybe thought possible for you. And with all of my heart, I truly know that in certain times, it's really hard to see how any of this could be a blessing or a gift. But in time, if you will open up to the potential that it is happening for you, you can start to see where, well, yeah, it is bringing me clarity on that this isn't working for me anymore, or I don't really love this job, or I really am not living my life the way I want to. And the passing of my dear beloved friend or family member is really a wake-up call to me that I do have some unrealized dreams, and there are other things I want to do besides work 60 hours a week. And, same thing with your body. I think the most interesting shift I had after my cancer is that your relationship with your body is so important. And most of the time, we are in judgment of our body, and we don't understand that any energy that you think you're expelling outside of you, like you're fighting against some political party or some wrongdoing in the world, all of that energy has to move through you first. And your body doesn't know that you're intending to direct that energy to something outside of you. It is experienced as you fighting you. Mm. And the very way that cancer operates is, your cells begin attacking the healthy cells in your body. And for most of us, I was quote unquote happy. I lived a really good life, but I didn't really understand the level of stress and competition and all the things in my life that were creating incredible disharmony in my body. And absolutely, all of those things in my life, I now look at as the most incredible blessings that opened up a path to me. And so I really could align with the purpose and the meaning and the joy that I really wanted in my life.
It's so interesting. As you were saying, as we were speaking, a thought came to my mind of an interview I did with a near-death experiencer who, when he died, he was above himself. And for the first time in his life, he looked at his body with compassion. Mm-hmm. That this is the body that's walked me to the store and gave me life and moved me. But throughout the time up until his near-death experience, he was in judgment of his body. And that was such a profound thought to me, because we all, and especially in the West, we're bombarded with these images of perfection and stuff. I was just listening the other day to some of the actors who were in Top Gun and then in the new Top Gun movie. And there's the famous football beach scene when they're all they're all without shirts on and they're all ripped and everything. And apparently they shot it and Tom Cruise wasn't happy with it. So then they had to go and reshoot it again. And they were like, oh God, we have to get back into that insane shit. So they had to they starved themselves to get, just for the moment that we see, it goes away 5 minutes after they cut the camera. Yeah. So it's unobtainable. It's unobtainable image of our bodies, but it's really fascinating. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the Counsel, because I'm fascinated about the channel, about you channeling. What was it like when you first channeled? Like when that came through you, did you freak out? Did you go, what the hell's going on? What was that process like?
Well, actually, I'll back up here a little bit, and part of it actually has to do with an out-of-body experience I had about 10 years ago. I did not want to have a near-death experience. I wanted to experience myself from the other side, but I didn't want to have a near-death experience. And I, at that time, had a lot of friends that were doing ayahuasca journeys.
Oh, yeah.
And I also did not want to have an enlightenment experience that way. Right. I wanted to have like an out-of-body experience of absolute total knowing, where I would never question what I believed again about life and the spirit and the soul and life after death. But I just didn't feel called to do an ayahuasca journey. I knew I didn't need to create a near-death experience in my life at that point. And about a month later, and I'll keep the story short, I went to Sedona. And only one thing I really wanted to have there was this experience that was available at a spa called a Harmony Journey. And it was essentially like a trance meditation sort of process with some energy work involved. And I completely popped out of my body. And I was in total and complete bliss, like pure bliss. I had absolutely no fear. I could not even describe in words the love I felt. I felt the presence of this consciousness all around me that was the most loving thing I had ever experienced. And I was looking down at my body, and the practitioner was holding my body like this. And I knew that he was keeping energy in my body so that I could experience what I had set the intention to do. And I came back from that experience, and I can tell you, there's nothing but love on the other side. It is a pure bliss experience. The level of appreciation that you have, it's not even, the appreciation isn't even the word, but for your body, for your people in your life, for the whole human experience, is just this absolute reverence for the incredible opportunity to be on this planet at this time. And I came back in my body, and I know that was part of my work with the council, but it originally, my very first experience was when my brother passed away in a car crash, and I had gone to where he was living. My family, my immediate family, and I walked into his viewing, and his body was on the left. It's the first time I had seen a dead body. And I went over and I touched him, and it was very shockingly cold. I didn't expect that. I went and sat down in this very heavy emotional room, hearing my family all crying and grieving. And it was extremely cold in this room. And it was just a very surreal experience of how could this, have happened. And within a few minutes of sitting there, what I can only describe as liquid love started in the top of my head, and it flowed over my whole body. I was totally, completely in peace, and I was warm, and I could feel this liquid love all around me and within me. And over my right shoulder, I heard my brother say, "I'm still here. I'm just not in there." And I knew the reference was to his body on the left side of the room. And back in my head, I said, "Well, where are you?" And he said, "I'm just as here as I ever was. I just left the density of the body, and I'm at a vibration or frequency that you can't interpret with your physical senses." And those were not words I used at that time. Density, vibration, frequency, physical senses. I asked him, "Well, what about heaven and hell and all those things?" And he said, "It's not like that. There's only love here. Those are states of consciousness you experience based on your vibration in the human experience." And I just sort of was in this absolute knowing of what he said. And then it receded. And I was back in this very cold, emotional, heavy room, realizing that I'm the only one who had just had this experience that I had had. But that experience never left me. And my brother would spontaneously show up for years after that, with this just feeling of love. I always knew it was him. And then I started waking up in the middle of the night, and I had a lot of questions about things. I had studied personal development. I'd studied religion. I'd studied spirituality. I'd studied all these things, law of attraction, all that stuff. And I still had a lot of questions. There were some things that just didn't make sense to me. And I had these questions that nobody could answer. And I started waking up in the middle of the night, and I just had to write. And I would grab a notebook, and I would just start writing and writing and writing. And then it would just stop, and I would go to sleep. But the next morning I would read what came through me in the middle of the night. And it was the answers to my questions. And I knew it wasn't coming from my head, but somehow it was coming through me. I now know this process to be automatic writing. And I now teach this process to thousands of people, and everybody can tune into that, whether it's tuning into your higher self or your loved ones on the other side, a beloved animal that transitions, or your guides, your angels, archangels, ascended masters. You can tune into anything using that process. It happened spontaneously for me. But that was sort of the next phase of it, was this automatic writing. And then one day, by divine synchronicity, I ended up in a yoga class next to this woman who was a QHHT practitioner, which is quantum hypnosis healing technique, which was developed by a woman named Dolores Cannon, who's just amazing. And I said, well, what do you do? And she says, well, I help people get in touch with their higher selves. And I said, oh, I think I need some of that. I'm having these strange experiences.
Two, please.
Two, please. Yes. And so she came over to my house. I was laying down on bed. She walked me through this meditation process, and it went about 15 minutes or so. And then she said, do I have permission to talk to Sarah's higher self? And I was conscious. I was aware. I was definitely relaxed. I felt more open. And after a period of time, all of a sudden, this energy came through and my voice changed. I was still conscious, but I was just trying to keep up with this incredible stream of consciousness and information that was starting to flow through me. My voice changed. I kind of sounded like a Middle Eastern man. I was talking really loud and really fast, but the voice went on to answer all of her questions about who are we? Why are we here? What is our purpose? Why is there suffering? I mean, anything you could sort of think of, as well as personal questions that I had laid out that I wanted answers to. And so after the session, that energy had receded. I was aware of what had happened, the incredible love that I was feeling, the energy that I was feeling. But I think my next statement was, okay, no one is ever going to know that just happened. No one's ever going to hear that. But I proceeded to listen to the recording of it. And I actually had it transcribed, and I read it. And I knew it was the answers to everything I ever wanted to know about how we live our purpose and how do we live our highest potential and how do we create an extraordinary life. And so I would have her come back. We ended up becoming great friends, but for several months, once or twice a week, she would come over and help me get into that meditative state. And that was what eventually the voice that came through always referred to themselves as we or us. And one time I had this experience where I was in this meditative state and I saw myself walking into this council of light beings that were these extraordinarily beautiful beings of light, all standing around a table. And there was one open chair, and I knew that was my spot. And I walked into that spot. And from that moment on, I just knew that they were the counsel, and that's what they were. And so this went on for a while. I was still doing the automatic writing. I was doing these sessions with her. And again, thought, no one is ever going to know about this, but it just completely changed my life. It changed her life. I shared it with a couple of very close friends, one of which was going through a very dark night of his soul at the time. He ended up asking, well, can I talk to the voice or the counsel? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's try it. And in that one session, what came through for him absolutely transformed his life and got him back to a path, or opened a path for him to really live his purpose. And so I saw that this information was really changing people, and I just couldn't not share it. And so I sort of had to get over my my reservations about it, my judgments about it. I have a very wonderful family, many of who have only ever known the Christian faith, and that's how they believe it is. And so I didn't want to lose their love and approval.
How did you deal with that? I mean, I'd imagine that your friends and family all of a sudden are like, Sarah's doing what? Like, what's going on? What?
Yeah. The counsel had brought through a message in a private session right around this time. And they basically said, when you love and accept and approve of yourself, everyone else will accept and approve of you as well. And so I ended up a few days later having this conversation with someone very, very, very important to me, who said, I just don't know what you're doing. I don't understand the voice thing. Why can't you just call it Sarah? Why do you have to call it that? Why do you have to, speak in that way? And I said, if you think I could talk for 90 minutes about those particular topics and not miss a beat and say, or, or like, and just, I said, I couldn't make that up if I tried. It's not coming from my head. It's not just my voice. And they said, I just don't understand. And I kind of jokingly then said, well, you didn't understand when I did IT infrastructure consulting either. So it's okay. But I'll tell you, inside of me, I had completely accepted that this is who I am. And I didn't need anyone to approve of me. And I didn't need anyone to understand. But I just loved them. And I said, it's okay if you don't understand. I still love you. You still love me. It's okay if you don't understand. And fast forward a couple months after that, I actually had a very dear family member who had been exposed to spirituality in the past and I thought was pretty open, completely out of the blue. Sent me a text that said, I don't know what you're doing. I can't be supportive of this. I don't know what is going on with you. I just can't have you in my life. And I was shocked, but this energy came over me and I heard the counsel say, this is not about you. Just love him. This is not about you. Just love him. So for about a year, I had very little communication with this person who was very dear to me. I would wish them a happy birthday and a Merry Christmas and all those things. Normally didn't get a response. And about a year later, he reached out to me and said, I was so wrong. I am so sorry. I just didn't understand. I could not be more proud of you. You are the most special person in my life. I'm so proud of what you're doing with your life and your work. And we picked up from there and never looked back. And he's one of my biggest supporters in my life. And so, you are going to come across times that people don't understand. That's okay. That's okay.
I always, because, when I launched this show and started talking to the, spiritual masters and best-selling authors and people like yourself, channelers, mediums, psychics, people sometimes are like, man, what? Like, what's the channeling? Do you believe in that? I go, look, man, I'm very pragmatic. I'm a very pragmatic person, even though I'm a spiritual person and have faith, but I'm pragmatic. And I just look at things as they are. And as I started talking to channelers and started seeing them channel, and I have some very dear friends who are very well-known channelers, and seeing them do it live, I go, look, man, I don't know what's coming through. First of all, is anything that they're saying resonating? If it is, who cares if they're putting on a show or if they're just talking? That's step one. Step two, I'm come from the film industry. I know actors. I direct actors. To do what you're talking about, a 90-minute monologue, improv as a stream of consciousness would be nearly impossible for Meryl Streep to do or Denzel Washington to do. So on that level alone, even if you don't understand it, you're just like, I can't explain it, but there's no way that you're doing it by yourself. Like, it's just no physical way. And that's just from my perspective of working professionally with actors for so long.
Yeah.
And also improv actors and comedians who can riff. But the stream of consciousness that comes through, and I have seen your channel on some videos, and I'm like, no, there's no question in my mind that there's a channel, something's coming through. That's my personal opinion. So that's anyone listening, like, it's like channeling. What? That's what I look at.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things. First off, everybody channels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different expressions. All you're doing is opening up to source energy and allowing the expression of that in some form. So an athlete that is in the zone,
Mm-hmm.
when they are just in the zone and they know where the ball's going to go before it gets there, they are accessing a higher level of consciousness and an opening to be a conduit of source energy, which allows them to be exceptional athletes. Or a downhill skier, when they're just in that flow, they are completely harnessing source energy, and they are in a level of consciousness where they can do what seems to be impossible. Art is another example. Music is another example. Poetry, acting. I have to laugh sometimes when a friend of mine that has really no concept, like my grandmother thinks I'm a motivational speaker, and that's totally fine.
Perfect.
But I have a lot of friends that think, oh, well, she's a motivational speaker, or so okay. But the next time I see them, they'll say something like, well, I just channeled Uncle Bob, and jokingly, as just a everyday household reference of, oh, I just channeled my grandfather there, or I just channeled Tom Cruise there. I mean, they're actually saying on some level, they understand that they can tune into the consciousness and the energy of people and people that have transitioned and people they've never met. So we all do this. I have taken over 4,000 people through a series of exercises to learn how to channel, but it's not even really learning. It's reconnecting with an ability you never intended to forget. So for me, just let's compare it to a professional athlete that as a little kid loved baseball and wanted to be a professional baseball player. When I was a little kid, I have always loved spirituality, really from a young age. I only understood that as Jesus when I was a kid, but going to Sunday school and the songs and the heaven stories of heaven, and I loved animals and I loved people, and I used my imagination, but I was connected to spirituality through religion at a very young age, and it always, the answers and God, and fascinated me. Now, I went through a time where I couldn't even use the word God because I felt such judgment about this is the only way, and if you're not going that way, if you don't use this way, you're going to hell, and all those things, whole nother conversation, right? But my passion has always been, ultimately, how do I live my highest potential in life? How do I live my purpose? And even as a little kid, I think I had that feeling, that intrigue, that interest. I did a lot of things as a kid to just see what was possible for myself. And so for me, my continual focus for answers to those questions is what I believe drew me into that experience of my brother's transition and having those conversations, the automatic writing, the channel coming through and being open to it. But just like a professional athlete, I can't even tell you 10,000 hours plus that I have channeled. And at first, when I started channeling, I had to lay down on a bed for like 15 minutes, had to be dark. My friend would come in, she would take me through a 15-minute meditation. It took me 15 or 20 minutes to get into channel, and I could maybe hold it for like 45 minutes. And now I take 3 deep breaths and they're right there, and I can channel for 2 hours, and it's just a way of being. Just like when you see a professional athlete or downhill skier or pianist or singer, like a rock star that stands on stage and is channeling source energy for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, holding this energy for thousands of people, that's channeling. So the one, I've never doubted it, but the times that actually blow my mind are in my master's class program, which we do a weekly call, any of our live channeled courses that we do that are done live, we offer Q&A. And we dedicate a big portion of those things for people to be able to ask their questions directly to the counsel. That is when I am the most absolutely fascinated. If anybody ever questioned channeling, those are the moments when I go, there is no way you could make this up. You take the most extreme questions. The channel never wavers. They never judge. There is never anything but love. They always are bringing through a greater awareness, a higher perspective. And I've never had an experience where someone didn't ask a question and then completely shift into the awareness of peace and joy and love and freedom through the answer to that question. And those are the times to me that, not that I've ever doubted it, but it cannot be coming from your human mind. And when I teach people how to channel or do automatic writing, for example, one person said, I think I'm making it up. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, it just says you are exactly where you're meant to be. You are loved. You are always guided. Everything is coming together for you. Everything is happening for you. It just went on and on and on. And I said, when you go to your head, what does that say? I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. I've screwed it all up. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't figure it out. I did that wrong. I did that wrong. That person, the voice in the head is a very different voice than tuning into a higher level of consciousness. Right. And that's really all it is. The counsel very articulately explains to people different levels of consciousness are determined by different vibrational frequencies, by how you feel. And as you raise your vibration, they also say the formula for creation is that consciousness is what moves energy into form. So as you raise your consciousness, you are accessing greater source energy. And in that way, you can manifest things or create things that are seemingly impossible or beyond the limitation of a 3D reality that is based in separation, lack, limitation, fear, or the judgment of you still need to fix, or you're still not there yet, or you're unworthy. When you're carrying all that stuff, you're not allowing yourself to access the source energy that is here for everyone. When you elevate yourself beyond those things into a consciousness of pure love, beyond that, this is wrong and this is bad and this should change. And from there, everything actually changes. Mm-hmm. You know, heaven on earth is a state of consciousness. Happily ever after is a state of consciousness. And the counsel defines success as joy. Do you experience great joy in your life and what you do? Are you doing the things that you enjoy? Are you doing the things that you love to do? And sometimes people will say, well, I have all these responsibilities, kids, jobs, spouse, all that stuff, right? And the counsel will say, your most important responsibility is how you're feeling right now, because that is determining your level of consciousness and your vibration, which is determining what is available to you in the form of abundance and well-being and manifestation and freedom and all of those things. And so we are responsible for the stories we're telling ourselves about our limitation or our unworthiness. We're responsible for the thoughts we're thinking. We're responsible for whether we're in our power or not. And I think any parent would want that most for their own children as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's our responsibility.
Fantastically said, my dear. Fantastically said. Now I'm going to ask you: Do you mind bringing in the counsel?
I would love to.
Oh, that would be awesome. I have a couple questions. So
absolutely,
and I think it's a good experience for the audience to kind of see mm-hmm. you in action and and they can make their decision up for themselves. Yeah. So let me know when you're ready.
So it just takes me about 3 deep breaths to bring the counsel in. My mm-hmm. eyes are closed when I'm channeling. It really just helps me to stay in a consciousness to fully bring in everything that they talk very fast. They'll bring in a lot of information. It's easier for me if my eyes are closed. So if your listeners, if you feel good to do that too, if you're in a place that you can do so, you might just want to close your eyes and feel for the energy and really feel into their words. The cadence of my voice does change a little bit. I'm aware of everything that's going on. I just experience it from a higher perspective. You can ask them about anything, just talk to them like you're talking to a dear friend and have some fun with it. So here we go.
All right.
We are so pleased and delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you on this fine and glorious day. And we remind you that while our words to you are important, this is a vibrational experience of remembering the truth of who you really are and why you are here and all that you intended when you chose this magnificent life experience, because we assure you, your life is meant to be so very good for you. You are infinitely worthy of every dream in your heart. You are here to create the experiences that you want to have for you. You are here to live fully and to love fully and to be all that you are. And in this experience, you will expand. You will come into greater expression of all that you are. And through each experience, you will know yourself in a deeper, more intimate, more profound way. You are here to realize the joy, the freedom, the love, the well-being, and the abundance and the beauty that is all here for you. You are the one giving meaning to everything. That is how powerful you are. So we will go to your questions, our dear friend.
So, yes, how do we discover our purpose in life?
Well, you are your purpose. You are your purpose in every moment. You are what brings peace into this moment. You are what creates the love in every relationship you have. You are the one that is either choosing to live in a beautiful, abundant world or denying that for yourself in your own experience. You are your purpose. And your purpose is to do the things that bring you joy and to do the things you love and to create whatever is fun for you to create. You're here to choose the experiences that you want to have for you. You're here to move energy into form through consciousness. And as you do this, you are raising the vibration and the frequency. You are raising the level of consciousness. You are serving in ways that you could never understand. And the ripple effect it has is unfathomable to your human mind. It's as simple as doing what brings you joy, doing what you love each day. And as you explore all the potentials and possibilities here, you are expanding those potentials and possibilities for all of humankind, which is also part of your purpose. So the experiences you want to have are expanding infinite potential, all of which is part of your purpose for being here. Do you understand?
I do. Thank you for that answer. Why did we choose life on Earth?
Well, it's truly the greatest thing going on in all of the universe. Really. And you and all who are listening and will ever listen, you chose to be part of this greatest transformation of human consciousness that has ever occurred in any lifetime. And that is what is happening now. And you focused yourself into this human experience to be in physical form on the planet during this greatest transformation of human consciousness that has ever occurred. And you chose it because of your great love. Your great love for humanity, your great love for the animals, your great love for the planet. You chose this because of your great love and because of this great transformation of consciousness that is occurring on your planet at this time. And because being in physical form as the powerful creator that you are within your own creation is fun.
What is the fourth dimension of transformation?
So, most in the collective human experience are in a dimension of consciousness that we refer to as the third dimension. There is no hierarchy here. This is not to mean that any one is better or hierarchically better than any other. But when you understand the levels of consciousness, you can intentionally choose what experience you would like to have for you. Most in the human collective are in the third dimension, and the basis of the third dimension is separation. Essentially forgetting that you are Source, God, the divine, experiencing yourself as separate from Source, separate from others, separate from what you want and need. There is lack, there is limitation, there is fear. When someone transitions, you believe they're gone because you're in the illusion of that separation. And being in any dimension of consciousness or level of consciousness is determined really by your vibration or the way that you feel. The heaviest, densest human emotion is shame. Many carry this dense feeling of shame or guilt or unworthiness, which holds them in a level of consciousness where they believe in their separation. Because this is a very dense vibration, you have to push and force and effort and struggle and sacrifice. You try to force energy where you think it should go. You're not fully accessing inspiration and the source energy to move in the form of the manifestation of what you want and need, even before you know you need it. When one begins to ask the question, who am I? And you understand that you're not your circumstances and conditions. You can change your circumstances and conditions. You start working on yourself. And in that, knowing that you can change things and fix things and heal things, you begin to elevate your frequency into what we call the fourth dimension of transformation. You can change your body, you can change your way of thinking, you can change your circumstances, you can fix things, you can heal things, you can heal ancestral things, you can transform anything. There's nothing wrong with this. In fact, it's far more empowering than being in a dimension of your belief in separation. But many get stuck here for lifetimes or their entire life because they're always fixing something that's wrong with them, or fixing something that's wrong with the world, or fixing something that's wrong with others. So to move beyond the fourth dimension, you must let go of judgment. And most importantly, judgment of yourself. To come into your wholeness and your perfection and your power. When you're judging yourself or judging others or circumstances and conditions, you are holding yourself in a lower dimension of consciousness. And something still needs to be fixed and something's still wrong. When you go beyond judgment, especially of yourself, into your wholeness, into knowing that you are everything you wish to be, you already are. You will come into a place of pure love. This is the fifth dimension of consciousness. Energy works very differently here in your life because you, through your consciousness, are summoning the energy for everything you need and more, even before you know you need it. And the moment you have an inspiration, everything you need is there. Pure love has been referred to as oneness consciousness or unity consciousness or heaven on earth and the new earth. But your well-being and your abundance is assured. And you truly live in a state of consciousness where you know that you are free to create and to choose and to have the experiences you want to have for you. And you allow the magnificent unfolding. You come into a place of understanding that the instant manifestation of allowing is joy. So if you want to open up and allow and receive and get in the flow, you focus on joy and you feel that joy. You do the things that bring you joy and you do the things you love and you know that you are worthy of doing what you love. And you know you have the power to take any task and bring playfulness and fun and joy and love into anything that you do. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much. How can loss and pain be a blessing in our lives?
Loss and pain are only experienced when you are in the illusion of separation. We speak often about your beloved human. We do not refer to you or any part of you as an ego. Because when you're trying to fight the ego and get rid of some part of you, you're in judgment, you're creating that fighting energy, trying to get rid of some part of you, which will always move you into separation, where you will experience fear and loss and sadness and pain, most often evoked from your thoughts and your stories and the way you're thinking. We speak of realization, which is coming into the integration of every part of you, loving, accepting, integrating every part of you into your wholeness. And you begin to know yourself more as the master that you are, not a master of any other, not a master of control or any of those things, but truly knowing that you are the master of your life experience and your thoughts and your thinking and the stories you're telling yourself. And so we refer to your human as just that, this beloved part of you, most likened to a small child, like the little boy inside of you or the little girl inside of you. And so instead of trying to fight that part of you, love that part of you, just like you would if a little child that you cared deeply about came and sat on your lap and said that they were so sad. And you could see the tears in their eyes. You would love them. You would hold space for them. You would go into your heart and just be in the compassion of that moment with them. When you can do this for yourself, you will very quickly elevate your entire experience such that loss and pain and suffering is no longer part of your reality. And here's what's really important. When you do that for you, you create a pathway for all of humankind to also choose to elevate their consciousness out of lack and limitation and loss and fear and pain. It's not the truth of who you are, but it is understood from our viewpoint that those things occur in lower levels of consciousness when one is in a very dense frequency, feeling completely disconnected from the person they love, or the things they love, or themselves, or their source. That makes sense to you?
It does make perfect sense. How do we
So,
Go
one
ahead.
thing,
Yes, please.
in your mastery, you can allow your human to feel what it feels, but you can still stay conscious and present in a higher perspective and a higher awareness. And allow your human to feel what it feels. And you'll notice that those emotions can move through you in a much more harmonious way as you stay conscious and present to what your human is experiencing, while also holding yourself in the conscious presence of this moment, meaning still in your power. All of your power is in the now moment. You can be present and conscious and in your power and still observe the pain your human may be feeling because of a loss, and navigate through that in a much more harmonious way. And this is what will contribute to humanity as a whole elevating themselves out of pain and suffering.
What do you think about the shift that is happening worldwide right now with the political and the environmental and the pandemic and everything that's happening to humanity at this moment? There seems to be a big shift. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you are living in the greatest transformation of human consciousness that has ever occurred in any lifetime, anywhere. You are either seeing that there is more love on your planet than ever before, more abundance on your planet than ever before, more compassion on your planet than ever before, more consciousness on your planet than ever before, more well-being on your planet than ever before. Or you are focusing yourself into an illusion of separation, in judgment of what's wrong and what's bad, which just moves you deeper into the density. You have very little power when you are in a dense, heavy vibration, pushing against and fighting against. Those who see the truth and create it within themselves, there's more peace on your planet than ever before. There's more abundance on your planet than ever before. There's more consciousness on your planet than ever before. If you want to change anything at all, it must begin with consciousness. You have more people living in a higher level of consciousness than ever before. And that is what is creating the great shift that is being experienced on Earth at this time.
How do we overcome the limiting stories that we tell ourselves?
Well, just like any story, when you become aware of the story you're telling yourself, you can change your story. You are all the writers of your own script, your own screenplay. And so in each moment, you are either allowing your power or doubting and denying your power. You're either allowing your abundance or you're doubting and denying your abundance. You're either allowing the love that's here for you or you're doubting and denying it. You're either allowing yourself to be in the knowing of your worthiness or you're doubting it or denying it with some story you're telling yourself. It's as simple as that. And so if you tell the story, well, I had a really difficult childhood and that's why I struggle to be open-hearted and trust people, and I've struggled in all my relationships because of my very difficult childhood and I just don't really trust people. If you keep telling that story, you will keep living that reality. You are creators within your own creation of reality. That's how powerful you are. You are all the award-winning actors and actresses in your own movie. Write the script the way you want it to be. I have the most loving, joyful relationships. And I have such peace and harmony in my life. I have an incredible community and I feel really connected. And all of my relationships are really meaningful and fulfilling. Now, when you start shifting that story, you might say, well, but no, that person really did do me wrong in the past. And that is why awareness is so important. That is why coming into a grander perspective is so important. First off, anything that occurred in your past that was hurtful, you must understand that those things only occur when you are in a level of consciousness where you are not aligned to the truth of who you are. So if someone hurt you because they were in fear, or someone hurt you because of their unconsciousness, that is not the truth of who they really are. They are in fear and separation and limitation, feeling shame and frustration and all sorts of very difficult emotions. They cannot see the truth within them. Therefore, they could not see the truth of you. They could not love themselves. Therefore, they could not love you. From our perspective, in the moment, all is forgiven. In the moment. Because it's understood what happens when one's in a lower dimension of consciousness. You can elevate yourself into pure love in any moment, and you might then look back at those relationships and be able to bless them. See how they were part of your path. See how they were bringing you into your power, helping you get clear on who you really are, so that you could be in your truth and create the life you want to live for yourself.
Is there any final words you have for everyone listening?
The most important thing at this time is for you to really understand how worthy you are. No matter who you are or what you think you've done, there is nothing that could ever happen in this human experience that could ever threaten or deny your infinite worth, your worthiness to live the life you want to live for you, your worthiness of being abundant and free, your worthiness of love and joy. You are here. That is the absolute proof of your worthiness. You could not be more loved. You could not be more guided and supported. In every moment, every infinite potential and possibility is available to you. Many of you are givers. You give and you give and you give and you give. But the energy of giving and receiving are one. When you give and you give and you give and you don't allow yourself to receive, things become very out of balance. Most give because they do not believe they are worthy of receiving. And it's more important now than ever that you really open up and allow yourself to receive all that is here for you. The infinite love, the infinite abundance, the infinite well-being, the infinite intelligence that is available to you in every moment. And you are worthy of it all. We are always with you. We are always available to you. You are everything you wish to be. You already are. It is all within you, and it always will be. We love you. We love you. We love you. And with that, we are complete.
How do you feel?
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Really, the love, it's flowing so fast. The love and the just
Energy.
expansion
Yeah.
and the awareness and the energy. It's just it's such a beautiful experience. So thank you for letting me
No,
share that.
thank you for doing that and sharing that with us. I hope it does some good in the world. I think it will. I think some people will listen to this and hopefully help them along their path. When you're doing that, you are aware, right? You remember everything you say?
I experience it from a much higher level of consciousness. I've had some sessions and questions that have come in the past that my human would be very emotional about. For example, I have some wonderful clients that are in animal advocacy, and in a private session with the council, they shared some of the things that they had witnessed in factory farming environments and those types of things. The council was unwavering in their perspective of it, in their answer. There was nothing but love. My experience of it was just nothing but love. I came out of that session, and my human got very emotional about some of the things that I had heard, and I just had to continue to go back to their perspective, and it passed through me very quickly. But I experienced them from a level of consciousness of essentially aligned with truth. And so there is nothing but love. But sometimes I notice my human having some emotional responses to something that might have come up. But then again, the most important thing to me is living this wisdom.
Right.
And what is possible for your life when you actually live this wisdom, not just read it in a book, but live this wisdom in your everyday life. And you asked the question about suffering and pain, and I recently lost my beloved dog, transitioned, and I just noticed how every moment that I felt any sadness or grief, it was very apparent to me that what I was actually feeling was love. And I was creating a story that the love was somehow not there or gone because she had transitioned. And I really let my human take as much time as she needed to feel what I needed to feel about my beloved dog's transition. And almost the moment I processed through that, I sat down and I asked for her to give me a message. And I used the process that I share when I teach people how to channel, of just how to get into that state, and then ask the question, what is your message? And she, this beautiful letter came through to me, which I could not have made up. I just could not have made up. And from that moment, I've been in total peace. And now all these very divinely orchestrated things keep happening. I'll say, okay, Kona, show me a dragonfly. And I was in a particular area that there are no dragonflies. And I didn't even think another thing about it, kind of went on with my day. And I got a card in the mail from a dear friend, dragonfly. And so the number one thing I will tell people about all of this, automatic writing, opening up to your own connection to source, living channeled information, getting in touch with your own higher self and living your purpose, is to trust yourself. You're not making this stuff up. I could have very easily walked out of that room when my brother first came to me and said, oh, I must have made that up. And I could have shut it all down. And I can't even imagine what I would have missed out on in my life. But because of my love for my brother, I couldn't shut that down. Because of the way I felt, I didn't need to understand it, but I knew it was true. And one of the things we do in our master's class community, we have these community calls where people share the experiences they're having. Because when you share these experiences, you begin to open up to more experiences and they become truth to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that the logical mind can then create doubt about. If you feel like Archangel Michael is guiding you and with you, you do not need to ask anyone else to verify that to you. You wouldn't even have that thought
Right.
if you didn't know somewhere within you that that was the experience you were having. Trust yourself.
Preach. Preach, girl, preach. Now
I'm basically telling myself everything I wish I would have known way back when.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Now I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests. What is your definition of a good life?
Knowing that anything is possible for you. Really living, if you want, to me, it's living an extraordinary life. And if you want ordinary and you want to be logical and figure it all out, that's not extraordinary. For me, it's living an extraordinary life. The divine orchestration, the synchronicities, the things that come out of the blue on just some ordinary day and have changed my life forever, the magic and the miracles, that doesn't happen when you're trying to figure everything out and make it happen your way. And to me, it's about coming into that heaven on earth place where anything and everything is possible. And you just live in that magical unfolding of life, knowing that you're the one that's giving meaning to everything. You can take the same moment and decide that it's beautiful and it's a blessing. And that's what it's all about to me.
And you know, when you said something that just triggered a thought, all the amazing things that have been created on this planet, from the airplane to trains to technology to, you know, the pyramids to whatever, all of that was created in a non-logical sense. It is not, when the Wright brothers flew, it was not logical. They were laughed at. When Edison was creating the light bulb, it was not logical. So all great things in our lives, and anything that's ever happened to me in my life, I hate to speak for you, but I imagine that things that good, well, of course I could speak for you. What you're doing is not logical. What am I talking about? Of course. The blessings that have happened in your life didn't come from a place of logic. Me building a company around podcasting is not logical. If you would have told me 15 years ago, you're going to be talking to people and making a living doing it, and you're going to help a lot of people along the way, I'm like, you're out of your mind. So for people listening to understand that logic has a place in our journey, but all good things, crazy things, wonderful things that have been created came from a place of non-logic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that, Alex.
What is the ultimate purpose of life?
Joy.
What is your mission in this life?
Oh, for me, it's just love, 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 love. I had someone in my community who's an animal communicator share that what the animals had told her is that when we're in our heart and we're petting an animal, it's like being touched by 1,000 angels. And that awareness, just when I hug someone or just being present with someone or my dog or my cat, or, oh my gosh, we just don't understand the love, the peace, the joy that we can bring to the world. And that starts with whatever is around you right now.
And where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
SaraLandon.com. There's lots of free resources there. You can find our courses. You can join our master's class community. We have several free videos on YouTube. We have a book coming out November 2022 with Hay House called The Wisdom of the Counsel. You can pre-order that now. We have one other book that's already in the works and will be released in 2023, and two more in process. So lots of incredible information available via books that are being published by Hay House. But go to SaraLandon.com, go through the free resources. There's channeled meditations, there's channeled courses. Our advanced master's class community meets every single week. We have an MP3 program where you get 2 new channeled messages from the council every month. Just dive in and start with whatever lights you up. If you find a particular blog in there that just the title or the image of it, start there. If you feel called to pursue one of the courses and it calls to you, start there. Just let yourself be guided. But there's lots of free resources. And if you want to dive deeper, there's a lot of opportunities to do that. Just go to SaraLandon.com.
And are the books also channeled?
They are channeled. Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
So The Wisdom of the Counsel is channeled messages for living your purpose. And that is a completely channeled book from the council on living your purpose.
Oh, I can't wait to read that. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And finally, is there any message you would like to leave the audience with?
As you know very well, Alex, this path to really becoming who you are and discovering your gifts and shining your light, there are times it feels lonely, and I understand that. And there are times that you will question what in the heck you are doing. And there are times you will feel like you don't have any gifts. But I assure you, there is something guiding you to your highest potential and to your greatness. There's a part of you that is out ahead of you, orchestrating things on your behalf, and can bring those things. And I mean, the council says that your destiny will come to you. What the heck do you do in the meantime? Do what brings you joy, no matter how simple it is. In this moment, if you say, what brings me joy? And the first thing that comes to mind is, I'm going to go down to the little coffee shop and get a cup of tea or a sandwich. Then go do that thing. Because on more than one occasion, when I have done that, sitting there waiting for my tea, I overhear a conversation, and that's the next step. That's exactly what I needed to hear. And the next step comes, and the next step comes, and the inspiration comes. And you arrive in a moment where you look back and you see how far you've come, and that every moment you really did have everything you needed and more. And there was something greater than just your limited perspective that was orchestrating it all. And in those moments, you will just never want to try to figure it out again. So do what you love. You are, as the council said, you are so worthy of doing what you love. You could probably relate, but at one point I said, well, I just love to sit and talk about spirituality with my friends that are into this stuff. And I could do that for hours. And I never would have thought, oh, how does that become my my life and my service to the world? But that's so important. You are worthy of doing what you love.
Sara, it has been a pleasure and honor speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing the council's knowledge with us. I truly appreciate you and the work that you're doing. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Alex. I really appreciated this, and such a great conversation. Thank you.